Hello and welcome to my podcast series 3, episode 1. And I'm so excited today to be interviewing Ramona Galey, who channels higher consciousness oPRA. Hello and welcome, Ramona. It's so lovely to have you here.
Hello, Allie. I am so very pleased to be here and excited. And you are my very first interviewer. And
Wow.
so this is an especially wonderful day for me, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Wow, it's such an honor to have you here as, a first interviewee. I remember my first interview and thankfully it wasn't on video. So you're a brave soul to come on video and I salute you for that.
Well, video is where it's at these days, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Ramona. Where do you live and what's it like where you live?
Oh my gosh, I am so blessed, so lucky to live in 2 different places. Right now I'm in my chalet in the mountains of Georgia,
Wow.
a little town called Sky Valley. And it's just beautiful. I'm at 3,400 feet and I have soaring ceilings and rustic chalet with a huge fireplace, and I love it. And it's a recent acquisition for me. And I'm on the mountaintop with almost nobody around. And the people are very friendly here and it's just super beautiful. Lots of falls and gorges and hiking trails and lake kayaking and just, I love it here. And then in the
That's
winters,
amazing.
I'm in Venice, Florida, near the Gulf, and which is just beautiful. And it's a very, very intensely social atmosphere and social time. Lots of people play ping pong 4 days a week with the whole big group, and just a ton of people there, and a lot of socializing, a lot of fun, a lot of activities. So I have the best of both worlds, and I just feel just so fortunate
Yeah.
that I live in 2 very, very beautiful places, both full of wildlife, very different wildlife. I really love nature and wildlife. And so in Florida, I can walk down the trail and step over an alligator practically. And here I can see black bears getting in my garbage.
Wow. Wow. That sounds absolutely amazing. And it's such a different contrast, isn't it? Between the 2 locations, the quietness of the mountains and then the more, as you say, social life of where you go and live in Florida.
Yes, and that tends to be my personality. I love extremes. I love variety.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine just living in one place or just living in just a normal, place. Again, it's just, I love the extremes, and I love the positive energy of people who are on vacation. Both of these places are tourist destinations.
Yeah.
And so it's like everybody's always in a good mood. So I'm a
Everybody's
better match
happy.
for them. Yes.
Everybody's happy. Yeah, it's a bit like when the sun comes out. Everybody's so happy to be on vacation. Yeah.
Yes.
So, do you get any snow where you are in the mountains there, Ramona?
They had a little snow the first winter, some snow and ice. In fact, the very first night I spent in my new chalet after closing, I woke up the next morning and there was no water. It
No.
had all frozen. So I didn't know to leave it dripping just a little bit, overnight.
Oh,
So after that I knew, and no harm done.
yeah.
But this last year, and I wasn't here at all this last year, I was in Venice the whole winter. They did not have any snow. They had a lot of rain. So as the earth is warming, this used to be a ski resort actually, and there's not enough snow now. So over the last 30 years, their climate has changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
But
Wow, that's amazing.
yeah.
Amazing. Absolutely. So, tell us, were you always spiritual growing up, or did you come from a religious background, or were your family fairly open, or is there a little story in there?
No to all of those questions. No openness, very closed, no spirituality, no religion, no paradigm within which to place any of the things that I'm aware of now. It all happened immediately after my late partner Betty. She passed away in October. I think it was the 10th, and on the 18th I received a phone call from a friend of hers, and I was planning on taking my life. I saw no reason to stay. I was in a very dark place and I was crying, and the phone rang, and it was Lordella, and I spoke with her, and she said, whoa, 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 wait a minute, you got to stop thinking like that. And I said, I agree, but I don't know how. And
Yeah.
she said, well, have you ever heard of Abraham Hicks? And I said, no, what's that? So she told me about it. And Betty had known her for 25 or 30 years. I'd known her for 15 years. We'd never heard her even mention this as far as I could remember. But I
Wow.
went to the library and I got the 2 books that she recommended. They were on the shelf. They've never been on the shelf ever since. I checked. Every couple of months I would check. They've always been checked out. That day they were sitting right there waiting for me.
That's mad, isn't it? Well, it's
And
not
that
really mad.
started the journey. What's that?
I said that's mad. Well, it's not really mad because there are no coincidences in this
There are
job.
no coincidences.
Yeah.
No, source and my inner being and all of the forces of good were absolutely looking out for me and steering me the right way. And I took to it like a duck to water. I was so lucky because I had a kind of a grace time period right after that where everybody where I was working and whatnot knew, you know, they loved Betty. She was an integral part of the whole thing. And so I had a lot of space. They took up the slack and gave me a lot of space. And I just immersed myself in the law of attraction concepts and in Abraham's teaching specifically. I went to all 3 cruises that year, the Abraham cruises, and I spent like 8 to 10 hours a day just listening to the tapes. Lordella had a box. This is amazing. She had a box of 50 CDs from the Abraham subscription series. She's been
Wow. Yeah.
subscribing for 25 years, and she always would listen to them until she was done and then give them away. And for some reason, she hadn't gotten rid of this one box from 2011 and 2012. And
Okay.
if you know the history and all that, was Jerry died at the end of 2011. So she sent me this box of 50 CDs. I put them all in chronological order and I started listening. So I got to know Jerry and I got to know Esther. Then I got to go through his death and I got to see her come out the other end of it with such beauty and such grace. And so she became instantly my role model and my idol. And I knew that I could do it if she could do it. And so that's how I got started. So
Wow.
complete paradigm shift from 0 spirituality to 110% spirituality in a course of a couple of months.
And how long ago was it that you lost your partner?
That was fall of 2014, so 5 years ago.
Okay. So not
Yeah.
that long ago, even still.
No.
Yeah.
No, not
But
that. Not
now
that.
you're comfortable, I would say, with knowing and believing that she has gone back to pure positive energy and that she's all around you anyway.
Absolutely. She's with me all the time. I've spoken to her several times. There's no sense of loss. There's no sense of of a death, you know, like we think of it. You know, every once in a while I'll have I would like to think of almost like a regression. You know, I'll have a wave of something will come up if it catches me off guard, but for the most part, intellectually and emotionally, I'm very much on board with that. I would say that receiving oPRA has helped with that. In addition to all the studies with Abraham and I've been on 7 cruises now, so I've made some really good friends, and it's just become my life. I mean, it's I can't imagine ever being back the way I was. It just would never happen. So.
What did you do before when you could afford 3 cruises in 1 year? What was your job before?
Well, I've worked from home for a while, and I still do. I do some consulting with a nonprofit. I do some real estate investing. Now, of course, I'm receiving oPRA, so that's part of my income stream. And I made some adjustments to my lifestyle immediately, seeing how I wanted my life to go, because I mean that's the first thing I started hearing from Abraham rather. You came here eagerly, you know.
Yeah.
All of their messages were so positive. They were all things I'd never heard before. The purpose of life is joy. Well, if the purpose of life is joy, I needed to make some changes because I was living for work and I was living to support my current, you know, housing situation. I was living for all the wrong things. And so I made a lot of changes that dramatically reduced my expenses. So actually my expenses, including all 3 cruises, actually went down that year compared to the previous year. So that's how I afforded it.
Yeah.
And that's how I continue to live. I never make a decision based on money now. And if I make a big decision, such as a tour, the money is always there and I never worry about it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's,
no, I just wondered back then how you were doing it because it's, you know, going back 5 years.
yeah, I was very, very, very lucky, very fortunate.
Yeah, blessed. Absolutely.
Blessed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so are your parents still alive, may I ask?
No, they both passed away in, let's see, 2009 and 2011, or 2008 and 2010. That's what it was. Yeah.
Okay. No, I was going to ask you if how they felt about you channeling and all of that.
They were a live and let live twosome, and they would have supported anything I wanted to do. My mother used to always tell me, you can be, do, or have anything you want, Ramona. Don't let anybody ever tell you you can't.
She sounds like Abraham.
In a way,
I say
she
that all
was.
the time because it is one of their lines. You can be, do, or have anything.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Amazing. Brilliant. So, so is that really where your spiritual journey started back those 5 years ago when you found yourself in this depressive state after losing your partner? Or did you have any inklings of spirituality before then?
I had inklings. When we went camping every year when I was a child for 2 weeks, and when sitting by the campfire in a very contemplative, almost trance-like state, I had what I can look back on now and say spiritual feelings, spiritual connectivity, connection with my inner being in a way that superseded any words or any thoughts. And I called on those feelings and that feeling of support many times throughout my life as I was making big decisions. And I had an intuitive side that I trusted much of the time. And then there was an experience, I don't remember the year, 1990 something, where I ended up sitting at the bottom of a waterfall, and I had an almost out of body experience that I can now label and say that was spiritual. At the time, it didn't scare me or anything, but I didn't have a box to put it in. I didn't know what to call it. I didn't have any words for it. I had no belief system that supported it. So it was just one of those things.
And looking back on it now, you can sort of see that it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, like a lot of people have those experiences earlier on, not really having any sort of words to put to what they experience, not what they experience, but well, yeah, I suppose a title on what they experience, where,
Yes.
you know, most people now these days will understand out of body experience or
Right.
travel, all those kinds of things, you know. But yeah, amazing.
And it's so interesting that if we don't have a word for it, sometimes it becomes a kind of a dismissive, like it doesn't really exist if we don't have a label for it or a box to put it in.
Yeah.
But it does exist, of course,
Sure.
separate from any word or label or even concept. So
yeah, absolutely. So tell me, how long have you been channeling oPRA then? When did you start channeling oPRA?
I started, well, what happened was I went to an Asheville Abraham workshop in April this year. And a good friend of mine met me there a couple days in advance, and we went hiking all throughout that area. It's such a beautiful area. And I live only about an hour and a half from Asheville now, so it was easy to just pop up there. And we were both registered for the webinar. And she started telling me about some recent experiences that she had had with channels and whatnot. And ironically, as much as I love Abraham and trust Abraham and Esther Hicks and just adore her and just really resonate with every single thing I've ever heard them say, even if I didn't completely understand it, it was still resonated in a truth kind of a way. I didn't, ironically, with all of that, I still felt like the people that you saw at the Renaissance Festival or the people who read cards and things were kind of charlatans. I didn't really believe that they were doing what they were claiming to be doing.
Right.
And I had a very healthy skepticism. The only reason I didn't have the skepticism for Esther and Abraham was, first of all, I was cracked wide open at that moment when I was introduced to them, but I also listened to them for hours. I went on YouTube and I went in Abraham Hicks abortion, Abraham Hicks drugs, Abraham Hicks death, Abraham Hicks,
I do that.
prison, whatever, just like, okay, just tell me what they think about this one thing. And I never heard anything that violated my intrinsic knowing. Everything resonated and was consistent over 30 or 40 years now. And so I had lost most of my skepticism, but I still had, just for anybody else, a high level of skepticism. And when she started telling me about these experiences, she's a good friend. We met through Abraham. We met on a cruise, and I trust her a lot. And I believed what she was saying. And she was describing some things that were really very resonant and true feeling. And by the end of the day, this was not premeditated, but I just said, I'm going to do that. I want to do that. I'm going to do that. and I had no plan for it. And but it just kind of unfolded from there. I was, in fact, two people who were also at the workshop, Bob and Flora, good friends. A tornado hit their property during the workshop, and I went to their. They're also they're not too far. They're in North Carolina, about 5 hours from my place. And so I happened to have a chainsaw that didn't belong to me, but I had permission to use it. So anyway, we ended up putting together a chainsaw party, and I went down there for the weekend to help clear their property. We had a wonderful time that Friday night. Saturday, we spent the whole day using the chainsaws and being all physical and working together and wonderful feelings. And then we had a couple of glasses of wine and a little bit of scotch. And by the end of the evening, Flora was like, well, why don't you, because I had told them all about how I had decided I was going to channel, but I hadn't done it yet. I had this knowing that I was going to, but just completely out of the blue. Like I'd never thought of that before. And so she said, well, let's do it now. And I was like, right now? And she says, yeah, let's do it now. And I said, I don't know how. And she says, it's okay, we'll do it anyway. So I sat down and it just happened. And so I called some people and said, people I knew, and said, hey, would you let me channel for you? I'm doing this new thing. And they said yes. And it just took off like a rocket. And I started working with Kevin Young, and who works with the emerging intuitives. And he was very supportive and encouraging, and put together a website page for me and did some of the infrastructure support and a lot of encouraging when I would say things like, well, Oprah said such and such the other day, and I'm not really sure whether, I'm not sure I can, I don't know what that means. I don't know whether I believe it or not, or whether that's really true. Like, how do I know if it's me or them? Those kinds of questions he helped with. And it's just been like a rocket ship ever since. And my eyes were closed that whole first April through August. And then towards the end of August, my eyes opened during one of the sessions, just suddenly. And then from then on, my eyes have been open, and I get more and more settled into it and more comfortable with it. And I love doing it. It feeds my soul. I've benefited more than anybody I've ever helped. And I've helped a lot of people. A lot of people have gotten huge, wonderful, positive results from consulting oPRA. And, but even with all of that, I have benefited more than anybody. It's a completely selfish act on my part, and it's beautiful. And I believe I'll probably be doing it for the rest of my life, regardless of whether anybody else wants me to or not.
And I'm so glad you do it now with your eyes open, because when I spoke to you the last time, I did mention that one of my friends was in a movie with a lot of other channelers, and nearly the whole way through the movie, they just had their eyes closed.
Yes.
And it doesn't really make for really good viewing.
No, not for good viewing. Although interesting, oPRA was very impactful. The first several official sessions that I did, it was interesting because somebody would ask a question, and oPRA would pause for a long time. And actually, it was more like I was pausing to make sure I was understanding what they were saying. And eventually, I would say one word. One word was all we would say. And they would be like, oh, yes, yes. And they would have this whole epiphany over this one word. And of course, we know that there's a lot of super conscious conversation going on, and vibrational exchange and whatnot. But from that one word with eyes closed all the way to many, many words, and I still don't have anywhere near as many words as Esther does, but many more words and more description, more explanation, eyes open. It's been very kind of comparable, the impact that we've been able to have on people. So yeah, I love it. And whatever more breakthroughs or growth there is on it, I feel like it will all be very positive and very helpful.
Absolutely amazing. I never asked you before, but did you ever go in the Abraham hot seat?
Yes, I was in the hot seat that very first year, the middle cruise, the Alaska cruise.
Okay.
I thought that I wanted to, I mean, I did ask questions. I wanted to know about Betty, because at that point yet I had not spoken to her directly, and I really missed her. And I was really split energy. I'd be very high as they were teaching me to be, and then I'd be just crash low, and then high and then low. It's like it was like watching somebody who's bipolar or something. And so I got up there, just not through alignment, just through sheer desire, get me up here, get me up here. And they said no, vibrationally, they said no very clear to me, several times in a row. And then they finally said, okay, come on. So I got up there and I asked some questions that were completely out of alignment. And then I asked the question that I was meant to ask. And that was the question, when we have an emotion, you're telling us that these emotions are so important to us and they're so integral to our entire experience and to our guidance. And I have emotions, but I don't feel them in my body. Does every emotion have to be in your body, or can it be just like in your head, like, oh yeah, I'm happy? And they were like, no, it's always in your body. It's always in your body. They were very clear, like clearer than usual for them, right? They were very clear.
Yeah.
And so I spent the next 2 years, and really I'd have to say probably still, but especially those next 2 years, consciously focusing on that information, on that message in the way that really came in. It really got into me. And I was able to absorb it and start applying it and living it, and then eventually teaching it. And, you know, in my discovery very late in life that I'm a kinesthetic processor, I never thought I was. I was in education in my early years, so I knew what a kinesthetic processor was, but I always thought it was a visual processor. And but I learned in my early 50s, I'd say, that I was a kinesthetic processor. And so armed with that new knowledge and understanding of what that meant in terms of what I was not experiencing in my body, because I was very much from the head up. And so combining all of that knowledge really just changed everything for me. It just exploded my understanding and my ability to apply the law of attraction principles, to be happy, to choose joy over and over and over again, regardless of whatever's going on around me, and to just be present.
Amazing. Yeah. It's so important to be present. Wow. Yeah.
Yes, it's everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us, so you've spoken a little bit about the first time that you channeled oPRA. Tell us a little bit about how you came to know oPRA's name, because it's quite an unusual name, let's be honest. Some laughs about this, but
Okay, it's a funny story. Okay, so here's what happened. I did that very first channeling session. One of the first questions they asked me was, how do you want us to address you? What is your name? And I was just doing this for the first time. I didn't know what the heck was going on. And I heard very clearly oPRA. Only I didn't trust that that was the answer. And there was no way in heck I was going to say the name oPRA, because I wasn't going to tell them that I was channeling oPRA. I just couldn't do it. So I said, oh. I kept trying to get it to turn into some other word. So that's all that happened in the first one. The second time was with Kevin, and I said, Kevin, ask them what their name is, because I still don't know their name. So he said, you know, what is your name? How would you like for me to address you? And I heard oPRA again, but what I forced myself to say was oPRA, because I just couldn't say the word oPRA. I just couldn't do it. And so this is a good analogy for my entire journey with oPRA. Is the only thing that I need to do is release my resistance and trust the process. I don't have to try hard. I don't have to make sure, you know, that all I have to do is get out of the way. That's it. And that's my lesson in life in general. That's why they've helped me so much, because I get to practice it every time I receive them. But at that time, I was still very high resistance. And I said, oPRA. So Kevin said, oh, oPRA, okay. So in Greek, that means father. And he goes off and he's like really excited. We've got a name. So we actually used that name for, I think, about 2 weeks. I did some channeling with it. I knew it wasn't right. So finally I said, okay, Kevin, in your next session, please ask them for me, because at that time, I've managed to do it a little bit just fairly recently, but at that time I could not figure out how to talk directly to oPRA. I had to either receive or transmit, but I couldn't do both. Right. And so when I'm receiving oPRA, I'm completely receiving. I'm not generating any desire or any questions on my own. I'm just allowing whatever the person I'm talking to, whatever they're summoning, whether through their words or their energy, that's what determines what comes out from oPRA. So I said, ask them this. Ask them, first of all, what is the real name? Because we just really need to know the name. And okay, that was the next session. Ask them what their name is. So they said oPRA, and I said oPRA, and then and I think that was the end of that particular session. So I got the sense that they were laughing at me when they said it. It's the only time I ever felt like they were kind of like almost like ridiculing me. Like I felt like it was almost mean or something. Oh, okay. And that didn't match anything I knew about Abraham or Esther or what oPRA should be. And so the very next session I said, okay, first of all, ask them, what does the name mean? Why are they laughing at me about it? How do they propose that we handle, because by this time we were starting to say this, actually, I might want to do this for some work for a business. And so my idea was, how are we going to handle the marketing faster that it is to claim to be Oprah? And by then they had already told us we could spell it any way we wanted. So Kevin came up with the spelling that we're using.
Okay. Because I had trouble. I don't know how you put that thing on the O, so I'm very sorry.
I have to copy it from something else. I can do it on my phone, but I have not figured it out on my computer yet. But I know it's a marketing nightmare. That's okay. So, but I still had a huge resistance about it. I was like, okay, when I would receive for somebody, I would say, okay, so the entities, their name is Oprah. And so I had huge resistance. So we finally get to this one session. I tell them this whole big long list. And so I pull in Oprah, and Kevin, this is the way we always do, Kevin asks his personal questions first to kind of get me really well into the oPRA, and then he asks my questions. And he says, okay, now Ramona has questions about the name again, so we really want you to be clear. And he runs through all the questions, leaving off the last one. And then Oprah's quiet, and he says, so do you want me to do them again, or just one at a time? And they said, one at a time. And he said, okay, what is the meaning of the name? What is the derivation of the name? Why, And they started to laugh. And it's the first time, must have been probably either late June. And no, it's probably late May. Anyway, I don't remember. But it's the first time they had laughed. Like Oprah, as a separate from me, laughed.
And you could hear them.
Well, I was making the noise because they've got my body, but it wasn't my laugh. I laughed like, ha, ha, ha. They laughed like, ho, 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 ho. Or at least they did back then. So it was a completely different laugh. And it wasn't mine. And I still didn't think it was funny, but they did. So they said, it's a joke. And Kevin says, well, so we kind of got the impression last time that it was a joke. Can you explain the joke to us?
Yeah.
Because he's really good at being very literal and very direct, right?
Yeah.
So Oprah says, a hot seater, what they said was a questioner once was talking to Abraham, and Abraham in jest said, we get all of our information from Oprah. We are Oprah. Just like that. Chin up, we are Oprah. So the three of us, Oprah, me, and Kevin, sat there and laughed for like 5 minutes.
That's funny.
All of a sudden the joke made total sense, because the joke was that somehow we're above Abraham, and which is just it's funny. And that because somebody had said to them, and I remember the session that they were talking about, I think it's a gentleman in the hot seat, or is it a gentleman in the hot seat, and he says, well, I saw on Oprah, they said this, do you know about Oprah? And that's when Abraham says, yes, it's where we get all of our information. They're totally joking. So now Oprah's joking. Yeah, we are where they get all their information. We are Oprah. So after that, I never had any resistance about it. And the only resistance is, of course, people can't spell it, and people, but and Kevin's idea was at some point they may change their name, or I may start receiving somebody else. But at this point, I don't care. It's like not a big deal. So that's the story. It's just a big joke.
That's a brilliant story. Brilliant story. Thank you for sharing that.
Thanks.
Do you remember, I know you said so when they were laughing, they're laughing through your body. So do you remember the conversations, say, that you have with Kevin or a client as Oprah when you return back to your body as Ramona?
Yeah, I don't feel like I actually leave my body. I am present. I feel very present during the entire exchange. And I'm focusing on making sure that I keep my opinions out of the way. Every once in a while, I will be receiving oPRA on behalf of someone, and they will ask a question about which I have a very strong opinion.
Right.
And sometimes oPRA has to wait for my, I want, like me, pick me, I want to answer that. They have to wait for that to subside. So I'm very present, but I'm also very, very committed to keeping Ramona the human completely out of the way and letting oPRA just come forth with whatever they have to say. So that has gotten better and better. I personally have gotten better and better at that process as I go. And I think I'll continue to get better at being out of the way, but I'm still very present. And afterwards, if you ask me, do you remember everything that just happened? I will say yes. But then when I listen back to the recordings, I've only remembered maybe 50%.
Wow.
So I'm aware. I feel like I'm aware in the moment, but then later, maybe not so much.
Right. Okay. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So, well, we're going to try to bring oPRA through today, if you're still
Okay.
comfortable with doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's no trying involved. It's very easy.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, maybe they can share some of their golden nuggets of wisdom with us, you know, being higher than Abraham and all that.
Well, it'll be completely up to what you summon. What you summon will determine what you get from oPRA.
Okay. And just to let you know, I did ask some people on Facebook, and I do have a question from one of my Facebook friends. So I will ask them that.
Okay. All right. You want me to go get oPRA now?
Go get oPRA.
All righty. See you later.
See you later.
Greetings.
Greetings. Welcome, oPRA.
Thank you.
So lovely to have you here. I've just been hearing about your story, about your name.
We've been enjoying it.
I'd say so. It's so lovely to have you here. So thank you so much for joining us.
We are very glad to be here.
I have a question from a lady called Elizabeth Suzanne, and her question is, when will this world become a loving place, especially for animals? Is it ever going to happen in a big way?
The world is currently infinitely loving. There is no need to wait for this. It is already true. It's more true than you could possibly imagine. It feels not true only because of your focus and your resistance.
If she was here now, she might say something like what about the cruelty that goes on in the world?
We receive this question on a regular basis. The question implies that every sentient living being on the physical plane does not have freedom. The opposite is true. Every cell in your body, every blade of grass, every animal, every human has a direct connection to Source, is receiving love showering down upon them at all times, and has the freedom to choose whether or not to receive it, whether or not to focus on it, whether or not to allow it, whether or not to see it, feel it, or be aware of it in any way, shape, or form.
Perfect. So can I ask you then, if you're saying that an animal also would be bound, I suppose, by the laws of the universe? So
Yes.
it's attracting onto itself with its own thoughts and emotions?
Yes. The beasts of the planet excel at allowing. the humans excel at summoning.
Okay.
The projection that a human would typically place on an animal is based on what the human thinks they would feel in the same circumstance. It is not what the animal actually feels, because they are allowing, for the most part, they are in alignment with anything that happens. Their alignment supersedes any perception of loss or pain or cruelty. These are all human projections onto the situation. They come and go, they come and go, they come and go. They accept this completely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do you have any processes like Abraham Hicks does for clearing out limiting beliefs or feelings of stuckness?
We have provided individuals with processes that are specific to them that have been very helpful. We have not codified or published, as Abraham Hicks has done, for the general population.
Thank you. Can I ask you if you were ever physical beings on Earth, or have you always been non-physical?
Always both. Have been, are, will be physical. Have been, are, will be non-physical. Same as you.
So does that mean that you were once upon a time a human on this, or humans on this Earth?
Always were, still are, always will be. A part of us is always present on the physical plane, just as you are.
Through Ramona.
Through everyone.
Okay. So I'd like to ask you a personal question for myself, and that is that I channel sometimes too, but not in the way that I'd like to, not as free-flowing. And I've been told that I'm going to channel more. And I'm just wondering, have you got any advice for it to be more free-flowing for me?
Set your intention with no limits. Do not attempt to control what the process will feel like, look like, or sound like. Set your intention as a lightly stated desire. You do a walking meditation.
Not recently, no.
We see you doing a slow walking meditation. Set your intention. Focus on your breath. Walk very contemplatively and allow whatever arises. Simply notice. To complete the circuit, find a summoner. You cannot summon and receive at the same time without great practice. Even with great practice, it is not at the same time. It will be very close, fast back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But without practice, do not ask this of yourself. The walking meditation, we feel, we see, establishing the correct vibration, mindset, physical alignment. And in this meditative state, have another human summon, ask questions, allow whatever comes. You have a wide open channel. This will not be difficult for you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Do you have anything that you would like to share with my audience before I let you return back and let Ramona come back?
What do you feel they would like to know? They wish to feel more love. They wish to feel more love. Open to love by take a chance, trust, believe, just for a moment. Trust that there is an unending, unlimited, infinite amount of love being rained down upon you at this very moment, at every moment, with no judgment, no limitations, no expectations, no control, is yours for the allowing. Suspend disbelief for just a moment and feel the love that we have for you at all times. Allow it to seep into your body, seep into your heart, seep into your mind. Savor and remember this feeling. Remember this feeling. Call it, summon it, allow it, practice it. It is yours.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Oprah.
Yes. Are you complete?
Yes, thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Yes. We are complete.
Thank you very much, Ramona.
Sorry, I always laugh a lot when I come out. It just feels good.
Yeah, actually, you know, when I was watching you channeling Oprah, it's a little bit like one of my friends who was interviewed by Abraham. Her name is Julie. She probably watched this. Barnhill Weiner is her name, and she's been in the opera seat. I nearly said the Abraham seat a few times, and she said to me that, you know, when she saw them, their eyes did dilate, and I think yours do too when you're channeling.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
I've never looked in the mirror when I was Oprah, so I don't know.
You.
Yeah, I remember that in the hot seat, that there was this sense of deep darkness. I don't know if I could actually say that Esther's pupils dilate. Maybe, I'm not sure, but there was a sense of, I want to say blackness, but black seems to infer some sort of negativity, and it
Yeah.
was not. It was like an infinite.
Yeah, your eyes definitely changed.
Really? Okay.
Well, that's what I saw.
I believe you.
Watch the video back.
You know, I couldn't watch any of the videos of myself channeling for the longest time because I had some self-limiting beliefs about how I looked.
Yeah.
And so it's only really, you know, as we started wanting to make the content available to people, you know, clips and things, people, you know, especially who had attended the gallery sessions, they wanted the copies of the recordings to, you know, and then private clients wanted their copies. And so we eventually, so I had to get over it, you know, and I did,
Yeah.
but I still haven't really, you know, gotten up close and examined what I look like. So.
Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? Because, you know, that was one of my biggest fears. And, you know, if we don't face our fear, like, so going live was one of my biggest fears, you know, and I was like, no, I can't possibly do that. I don't want to be watched by thousands of people. I don't want to be seen on camera, you know.
And you're so super at it. I mean, you're just incredible at it.
Thank you. But I mean, that took practice. If you look back in the early days, I'm like, hello, is there anybody there? You feel really dorky. You feel like you're talking to yourself when you're doing a live, as opposed to an interview. An interview is different, but when you're doing a live by yourself, you literally cannot see anybody. You're seeing some comments, or you're seeing one or two, maybe 3 or 4 people joining in the start, and it's like, hello, who's there? And so, I was absolutely terrified. But I mean, we do have to face our fears and, you know, embrace our gifts so that we can share them with the world, and, you know, and teach the world and help them to have that expansion.
Well, yeah, because that's what we came here for. We came here to expand. I mean, I know the purpose of life is joy and all that, but the expansion is more delicious. You know, before Abraham, I thought my role here on the earth was to grow, was to learn.
Yeah.
And so I was always focused on that, but there was always a tension about that. There was always like a performance anxiety. Am I going to do it right? Am I doing it fast enough? Am I going in the right direction? There were all these questions, and as a result, stress. And stress doesn't feel good. And joy feels great. And now that I know, you know, the Abraham saying, the basis of life is freedom. The purpose of life is joy. And the result of all that is the expansion. And once I really took that to heart and I started focusing on feeling my best every day, doing what makes me feel the best, trusting that doesn't mean descending into drug abuse or something. It means actual high vibration, feeling good. Then my expansion just took off. Like way more than that. And I was always an expanding, you know, fool, but my expansion just took off. And so it's so delicious. And I love the idea that you are sharing with the world how to do that. And I aspire to do the same thing. And I haven't done a Facebook Live yet. I've been a little bit afraid to, but now you've inspired me. I'm going to try to do one soon.
Oh, I've inspired lots of people to do their Facebook Live.
Yeah, well, and how wonderful is that? That's beautiful.
I know, it's pretty amazing, you know. And if you need any tips, just give me a shout. I'll be more than happy to help. But yeah, it is intimidating in the beginning. And of course, expansion is why we're here, aside from the joy of the journey. And that's why I called my website expansivesouls.com.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, so I really believe that. So I'd just like to ask you, at the moment you mentioned the gallery there. Now, yes. I know what the gallery is only from Kevin Young, obviously, because I'm friends with Kevin Young, which is how you and I got introduced. Thank you very much, Kevin Young.
Thank you, Kevin. Yes.
And Kevin Young is obviously fantastic. But do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about what the gallery is? Because they don't know. While I know a little bit about it, etc., they won't know anything about it.
Yeah. So Kevin knew that we could go on to Zoom, the app Zoom, zoom.com, whatever it's called, and and put together where he was kind of like the MC, and I came on and just channeled Oprah. I didn't really speak much as Ramona. I just came on and went right into Oprah, and anybody could join if they, we had them sign up ahead of time and whatnot. And he kind of controlled who was asking the next question. And I'm not really sure even how he did that. At that time, my eyes were closed completely,
Yeah.
but people would take turns asking questions and Oprah would answer. And so one of the things that I didn't know that I wanted to test, one of the reasons why we decided to do it was I didn't know if I could read somebody's energy out of a crowd. Like if there's 10 people there or 20 people there and one person is asking the question, can I actually focus? Can Oprah, I should say, actually focus on that one person? Another thing I want to know is, can I read somebody's energy and their vibration if they've just typed it in the window and he reads it for them? And we got very positive answers to both of those questions. We also just wanted to make Oprah available to as many people as we could. Yeah. And because my schedule, my one-on-one schedule started to fill up pretty quickly, and I didn't want to be doing it, 8 hours a day. Yeah. And so this was a way for a lot of people who just had one simple question to get on and ask a question of Oprah. And it was very popular, very successful. I'd say everybody had a lot of fun. And Oprah grew a lot, and I grew a lot through that. Well, Oprah didn't grow. Oprah's infinite, but I grew a lot through that whole process. And we learned a little bit about what types of questions people had for Oprah, and gave me some idea of, where things were headed. And so, yes, we did a bunch of those, and we haven't done one recently. And I think we're going to probably do another one soon.
They were free, right?
They were what?
They were free.
Yes, they were free. We've been talking about doing one that's a little bit more targeted, maybe towards business owners. And we don't have any definite plans yet right now. We had talked about it and we had started to schedule it, and then we're both very intuitive and we just follow. It's a kind of a non-linear path that we're on. Mm-hmm. We follow whatever the juiciest path is at the moment. And so we've been working on some other projects. Okay. And I've also been working on a project of putting together an online course. And but I'm pretty sure that there's at least one more gallery reading in our near future. I just don't have any details for you yet.
Excellent. And do you want to tell everybody what your online course is, or is that a secret at the moment?
Well, it's a secret at the moment. It's coming up in another couple of months. And I will make announcements if somebody wants to go to Ramona Galey Channeling Oprah. It's a Facebook page, and join there or follow, then they'll get the announcements. Yeah. And they can also find out more about me on RamonaGaley.com. They can actually sign up for the email list. They'll get announcements that way too. So if you're not on Facebook, and I will definitely make announcements about it when it's ready.
Excellent. Okay. And tell us, Ramona, what services then you do provide to the public should they wish to avail of any of your services at the moment?
At the moment, I have one-on-one sessions. I have a half-hour session, an hour session, and then packages. A lot of my long-term clients are now buying the packages, but if you just want to try it, you can try either a half hour or an hour. Just go to RamonaGaley.com and scroll down through all the pictures and the stories, and at the bottom there is a place to sign up. And
so this is with oPRA, right? So they're going to have channeling coaching through oPRA.
Yeah. Pretty much pure channeling. Pretty much we get on and I see if they've got any infrastructure type questions, or if they're nervous, or if they need a little bit of guidance, where I go straight into oPRA, and oPRA stays on the entire time. And we get pretty deep, even first timers, even in that first session, we go very deep. And so I would say if you do sign up for one of those sessions, bring your most important, deepest questions, your deepest desires, and be prepared to engage in dialogue with oPRA. A lot of people come their first time and they're kind of nervous. They feel like they're speaking to the Wizard of Oz or something, and they just ask one question. And then, the very first answer tends to be more general. And so I would just recommend that they be prepared to just, well, what do you mean about that? Or how does that work? Or how does that apply to me? Or, that doesn't, just whatever your questions are, like really ask as if you were, going shopping for something and you want to make sure it is exactly the right thing. You want to get exactly the right answer. And we will get very deep very quickly and answer a lot of questions that might have been mystifying you for your entire life even. And we've had some really good results.
Okay. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Sure. So they can contact you at ramonagaley.com. Is that your website?
Yes, ramonagaley.com. It's actually a page on Kevin's website right now. That's one of the things I'm working on, is fleshing out my own website. But yeah, just scroll down. They can read about some of the things we've talked about, some of the stories, and look at some pictures from my life and whatnot. But then towards the bottom, we have some testimonials from a lot of customers, previous and current clients, and then they can just sign up. It's pretty self-explanatory. Just pick on the half hour or the hour.
Brilliant. And are you accepting Facebook friend requests or not?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love having new friends.
Okay.
I've gained quite a few friends through this oPRA thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's always good to get new friends, high vibing friends.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, Ramona, I'd love to say thank you so much for joining me here today. It's been an absolute honor to have yourself and oPRA with me. And thank you so much.
Well, Allie, thank you so much. I've had a wonderful time, and I thank you for making my very first foray into the interview world so comfortable. You've been gracious and warm and loving, and I very much appreciate that, and I honor you. Namaste.
Namaste. You're so welcome. Well, listeners, I'll see you on the next episode too. My name is Allie O'Shea. This has been Soul Expansion and Inspiration, Series 3, Episode 1 with Ramona Galey. Thanks very much, listeners. See you on the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.